The stars were still, but silence in space was never peace, just the absence of sound. Captain Arias Venn had learned that the hard way. His ship, the Omen, cruised through the shattered remains of a forgotten system. Asteroid belts drifted like ancient bones, orbiting a dying star no one had named in thousands of years. Most civilizations passed through this sector and recorded nothing. It was barren, they said. Wreckage of something once great but too old to matter. Nothing to colonize. Nothing to plunder. But Arias wasn't here for plunder. He was chasing myths. The bridge of the Omen was dimly lit in rust-red overlays. Holograms flickered softly, casting angular shadows across Arias' scarred face. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and silent more often than he spoke. A former war operative from the Auric Unity, now turned private contractor, scavenger, and if whispers were to be believed, one of the few living xenohistorians left who didn't work for the empires. He leaned forward in his command chair, studying the readings from the forward probe. The ship's AI, Kiri, spoke up. Captain, anomaly detected. Mass signature, metallic. Not natural. Bearing 031 by 47. Depth, 15,300 meters below asteroid crust. Arias narrowed his eyes. Alive. No life signs. No power. But the structure is intact. He exhaled through his nose. That's the fifth one in this region. Same configuration. Nearly identical to the ruins found in Sector 12A. Same alloy signatures. Same pre-warp architecture, but the inner lattice shows molecular stabilization far beyond current galactic standards. Beyond, the Elder? Confirmed. He stood slowly, adjusting the leather straps across his chest. His fingers brushed the hilt of a long-disused plasma pistol holstered at his side, not because he expected a fight, but because old habits died slower than he did. Send a drone. Full scan. If it's what I think it is. You believe it's human, don't you? Kiri's voice was soft, almost conspiratorial. He didn't answer right away. He walked to the observation deck, watching the asteroid field shift as the Omen moved between the drifting ruins of a once thriving planetary belt. Kiri, what do you know about the precursors? They are a disputed concept. Most galactic historians believe them to be fictional. A unifying myth to explain scattered, ancient architecture predating known empires. And what if they weren't a myth? That would imply the precursors were real. A civilization older than the Elder. Older than the First Flame Empire. Older than even the Koran hegemony. Arias stared at the fragment of twisted metal rotating in space outside his viewport. It was blackened, fused, and scorched. But there were angles, sharp, mathematical lines too perfect to be natural. And more importantly, there was writing. Not glyphs. Not the spiraling language of the Ikor or the wave-etched patterns of the coal. No, these were blocky horizontal symbols. He knew the shape of those letters. English. Centuries ago, the Galactic Council had uncovered a cache on a dead moon in the quarry's rim. Inside were a few corroded documents, sealed inside a magnetic vault. Fragments of a dead language no AI could fully translate. But some symbols, some words, matched that lost dialect. The same language found on Earth's ruins. The same language humanity once spoke. Arias had memorized them. There's a word, he muttered, stenciled across that metal plate. Kiri zoomed in the feed. The word was weathered but legible, Concord. The name stirred something deep in his chest. A ripple of forgotten stories, of secret archives and redacted scrolls. The word had shown up before. Once, in a broken transmission that no one could trace. Once, in a data fragment inside a vault that disintegrated on contact. But never here. Never in the deep. Kiri's voice trembled slightly, unusual for an AI. Captain, if this is a Concord wreck, it predates the collapse. Possibly by millennia. Arias nodded slowly. Prepare for descent. Arias, Kiri said, uncharacteristically using his name instead of title, are you sure you want to do this? The Council doesn't just ignore Concord ruins. They bury them. Or erase them. That's why I need to know. Because they've been lying. To everyone? He looked into the void. No. Just to themselves. The Omen's descent was quiet. The asteroid's gravity was light, allowing the ship to slip into its hollowed core without resistance. They navigated through tight crevices and narrow tunnels, finally reaching the chamber detected by the probe. The structure was there, embedded in rock, frozen in time. A large hall, metallic and monolithic, unmistakably artificial. The door was sealed but not damaged. It stood like a silent guardian, covered in symbols and numbers, and something else. A figure. Not painted, not carved, but projected. A hologram still flickering, impossibly active after uncounted years. It was a human silhouette. Mel, wearing what looked like a uniform, armored, sleek, with insignias faded beyond recognition. He stood with arms behind his back, looking out across the hall. Kiri's processors hummed audibly. Captain, that can't be an AI projection. There's no power source. Could be residual quantum entanglement. Static echo from an ancient system. No system we know can preserve data like this, not for so long. Arias reached out, fingers brushing the edge of the light. It didn't respond. But the man's eyes, however blurred, seemed to look straight into his soul. And then a low hum filled the chamber. Kiri? No input detected. Something's activating. The hologram's mouth moved. Not randomly. Not a glitch. It spoke. The voice was garbled, fragmented, but parts of it emerged. Directive 019. Found. Humanity is not gone. We were first. Arias stumbled back, breath caught in his throat. The figure continued, more distorted. Not vanished. Watching. Waiting. If they find this, it is already too late. And then the projection stopped. Silence returned. But it was different now. Arias looked at the door again. A soft blue glow pulsed across its surface and then, click, the mechanisms inside shifted. It was opening. Behind that door lay answers that could shake the entire galaxy. Every empire. Every archive. Every belief. Arias grinned, slowly without joy. Kiri, he said as the doors began to part, start recording. All of it. Inside the dark waited. But not silence. Not anymore. The doors split open with a shuddering hiss, parting like ancient jaws. Dust. No, not dust, ash, poured outward in a slow exhalation, untouched by time or air. For a moment, Arias saw only darkness inside, and then the chamber lit itself. Not with harsh light, but a soft, golden glow from countless embedded threads woven through the ceiling like constellations. The chamber within was vast. It wasn't a vault, it was a shrine. A circular hall lined with statues. Not idols. Not gods. Humans. Men and women. Soldiers and scholars. Some armored, some robed, all lifelike in their expressions. As if caught mid-thought, mid-command, mid-dream. In the center stood a plinth. Upon it rested a black cube, no larger than a helmet, with a single phrase etched into its side. We were first. Kiri whispered, her voice quieter than usual. I'm scanning. Arias, these statues, carbon dated at over 87,000 years. Possibly more. But it's impossible. Not impossible, he murmured. Just hidden. He moved slowly toward the cube. It wasn't radiating power. It wasn't giving off any signal. But his skin tingled near it as if the room knew him. Welcomed him. Kiri hesitated. I detect something beneath the plinth. Shielded. A vault of some kind. Open it. You may want to reconsider. There's an energy field, quantum locked. Not just encrypted. Alive. It may retaliate. Arias removed his glove. The metallic floor was warm beneath his boots, the air strangely breathable. He reached out and touched the cube. Instantly, light flooded the room. Statues illuminated. And a voice spoke, not a broken whisper like the hologram earlier, but a clear, commanding tone that echoed across the shrine. Identity confirmed. Access granted. The plinth sank into the floor. The cube hovered for a moment and dissolved into particles, revealing a circular platform beneath it. A stasis unit. Inside was a human body. Female. Ageless. Suspended in time. She wore a uniform unlike any Arias had seen, though it bore the same Concord insignia faintly printed on one shoulder. Her skin was unblemished. Her hair jet black and long, suspended like ink in water. Arias's breath caught. She looked alive. Kiri's voice was sharp now. Captain, that's not cryosleep. It's chronostasis, a technology theorized but never successfully achieved. She is locked in a single moment. She is not aging. What's her name? Working. But something else caught Arias's attention. A deep, rhythmic thud. Not from the chamber. From outside. The Omen's alert system flared in his neural link. Unidentified vessel approaching. Stealth class. No transponder. Likely Council interceptor. Damn it, Arias hissed. Kiri, seal the chamber. Wake her. I don't know how. You said the vault recognized me. Yes, but... He stepped back onto the platform. A ring of blue light encircled his feet. The statue shifted, faces turning slightly toward him as though acknowledging a ritual. Curie's processors stuttered. Arius, the architecture. This shrine, these statues, they aren't just commemorations. They're archives. They're storing memory, possibly consciousness, and they're connected to her. She's their queen? She may be their last command. A Concord Prime. Suddenly the stasis unit cracked. A fine line of light split the capsule. The chamber dimmed. Then the unit opened with a hiss. She gasped. Her eyes snapped open, and they were white. Not pale, not colorless, white as if light itself filled them. She sat up slowly. Her gaze scanned the chamber, then locked on Arius. Her voice was steady, precise. State your origin. Timeline. Arius swallowed. Arius Ven. Terran descent. Born 319 years after the Oort Scholar War. Current stardate, Zarin Epoch 14.223. She blinked slowly. Processing. Then she said, too late. A crash sounded above them. The asteroid trembled. Rubble cracked. Curie snapped through the neural link. Breach detected. Council boarding team inbound. They must have tracked the anomaly. 4 interceptors. Heavily armed. Arius drew his pistol. The woman, Concord Prime, slid gracefully off the stasis platform. Her feet touched the ground and every statue in the room pulsed with soft light. Then she raised her hand. From her palm, a sphere of energy formed. A weapon, or a signal. I am Commander Solene Vire. Human Concord Defense Corps. Earthborn. Year, 0. Mission status, unfinished. The ground rumbled again. Curie's panic bled into her voice. They've deployed a tunneling unit. 20 seconds to contact. Solene turned to Arius. You are not of Concord lineage, but your DNA carries baseline Earth core markers. Scattered. Mutated. We were right. They didn't erase us. They diluted us. I don't understand. You will. The chamber shuddered. Then the far wall exploded inward. Shards of rock and light burst outward. Figures in black council armor flooded in, weapons raised. Drop your weapon. On the ground now. Solene didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped in front of Arius. Her voice thundered, augmented by technology long lost to the galaxy. I am Solene Vire, Concord Prime. By Directive 0, this site and this officer are under my protection. Stand down or be purged by Concord law. The soldiers hesitated. Their leader, a tall figure in jagged armor with a council sigil across his chest, stepped forward. His weapon pulsed. There is no more Concord, he spat. Your law is extinct. Solene tilted her head. Then you have committed heresy against the first power. She raised her hand. The air fractured. Energy rippled outward like a tidal wave, silent and absolute. The entire council team froze in place mid-motion, suspended as if reality had paused around them. Arius staggered back, staring. Curie gasped, not in fear but awe. She just time-locked them. No tech does that. Not anymore. Solene turned back toward the chamber. Come. The veil is lifting. We must go to the core. Arius followed her, past the frozen invaders, through a corridor newly opened behind the statue of a woman holding a sphere of stars. The path sloped downward into a black tunnel inscribed with silver lettering. Solene read the words as they passed. In the beginning we walked alone. So we taught the stars to speak. Arius's voice trembled. Where does this lead? She looked back over her shoulder and for a moment her eyes softened. To the truth. Then she paused. Behind them the time lock cracked. A soldier twitched. The stasis was failing. Arius drew his weapon again, but Solene simply lifted a finger. Run. And then everything exploded. Detonation was not fire, it was history unsealed. The tunnel behind them convulsed as old defenses flared to life. Slits in the walls revealed long dormant weapon ports, which discharged beams of silent blue-white energy. The encroaching council soldiers never had a chance. Arius saw one scream before being vaporized mid-stride. But he didn't look back again. He ran beside Solene, who moved like a ghost reborn. The air around her shimmered slightly, an effect of technology he couldn't even name. Curie fed him updates in frantic bursts, even as she worked to map the ancient structure in real time. The structure is alive, Arius. It's reconfiguring itself. And, wait, I'm detecting quantum resonance patterns I've only seen in theoretical papers. Translation. He gasped as they rounded a bend. This place is older than the known universe and rewriting physics as we run through it. They entered a great hall, its ceiling hidden in darkness, its floor inlaid with interlocking metallic circles that pulsed with light as Solene stepped across them. At the far end of the hall was a door, an oval ring of obsidian set into a wall of what appeared to be starlight frozen mid-collapse. As they reached the threshold, the ring pulsed, and the door opened without a sound. Beyond it lay a chamber far larger than any yet seen, a cathedral of stars. Holograms of galaxies hovered in layered orbits. Some were familiar, others gone. Dead galaxies wiped from the current sky but preserved here. In the center of the chamber floated a massive spherical structure, spinning slowly and surrounded by hundreds of smaller fragments. They hovered like moons around a planet, some cracked open, others glinting with golden seams. Solene paused, turned, and placed a hand against the central platform. Instantly the room changed. The holograms fell away and reality was revealed. They were not in a chamber. They were in a ship. The walls had only appeared static. Now they shimmered and shifted, showing a vast array of controls and data interfaces that responded to Solene's presence. The fragments floating around the central sphere aligned themselves like petals on a flower. Curie whispered, stunned, "Arias, that's not a vault. It's a core array. An ancient control bridge. This entire asteroid, it was a Concord command ship." Solene nodded. This was the Sentinel. The last memory of Earth's first age. Arias blinked. Earth's what? Solene walked slowly to the core and touched it. The floating pieces moved closer, orbiting faster. A deep hum rose in the air. Earth, she said quietly, was not a cradle. It was a fortress. Arias stepped toward her. What do you mean? She turned. You think humanity spread into the stars and learned to adapt. But the truth is reversed. We were already there. Earth was a fallback. A genetic vault. A retreat. The room dimmed again and a hologram lit the air, an ancient star map. One Arias had never seen before. There were no known factions. No council lines. No Zaran epic territories. Instead, 9 great banners floated above 9 systems, each with the Concord sigil in different colors. Curie translated. These were sectors of unified human presence. 9 starborn houses, ruled by Earth Core. And they collapsed, over 100,000 years ago. Solene's voice was tight with memory. We fought something we couldn't destroy. Something older than even we were. It was not a species. It was an extinction cycle, living entropy. We called it the Silence. Arias froze. I've heard that name. Only in fringe theory. A myth used to scare historians. Solene's white eyes narrowed. You remember it because we made sure something survived. A warning buried in collective memory. Not enough to explain, just enough to haunt. Curie interrupted sharply. Multiple inbound ships. Council fleet. 4 cruisers and a dreadnought. Arias turned. They can't breach this structure, can they? Curie hesitated. They shouldn't be able to. But they brought something else. A tunneler equipped with a gravitic disruptor. They're trying to pull the Sentinel apart. Solene placed both hands on the core. No, they won't. The floor shook violently. From deep beneath, a resonant boom echoed upward. A second and then a third. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then came the scream. It was not human. It was the ship. The Sentinel roared. Lights blazed along its interior. Ancient engines stirred. Energy surged. Fragments locked into place. And from the central sphere, a ripple of time distorted space around them. Curie gasped again. She's activating the core. Arias, do you understand what this is? Not even slightly. This isn't just a command bridge. It's a seed. A Concord Genesis engine. It's how humanity made colonies in inhospitable systems. It reprograms physics. Solene turned, her face pale. But it's incomplete. Damage. We need a relay key. My key was lost in stasis. Arias's eyes widened. He reached into his belt pouch and drew out the small shard of obsidian he'd found in the outer ruins, the one the Sentinel's perimeter recognized. Solene saw it and gasped. Where did you? It called to me. Just before I found the shrine. She took the shard and placed it into the core. It pulsed once, twice, and then the chamber flared with light. Outside, the Council dreadnought shuddered as shockwaves rolled across the asteroid's surface. Core alignment at 34%, Curie called out. Coordinates? Solene asked. Curie hesitated. Earth. Solene looked at Arias. Then that is where we go. Before he could ask how, the core pulsed again and the floor beneath them folded downward, revealing a launch platform with 3 translucent sarcophagus-like pods. Travel chambers. Wait, Arias said, voice low. We're leaving? Soline's expression was unreadable. The Sentinel is awakening. Its data must be delivered. Earth must know. If any of it remains. You and I, we are the relay. She stepped into one pod. Arias looked at the other. He took one last glance at the glowing chamber, the stars overhead, the pulse of something far older than he'd ever known, and stepped in. The pod sealed. Kiri's voice echoed in his neural link. Arias, something else just activated. Not from the core. From beneath it. The countdown had already begun. For Kiri, what's beneath us? She answered with a tone he had never heard from her. The original Concord AI. Still online. Then came one more voice. This time not from Kiri. Not from Soline. From everywhere. You have awakened the chain. Humanity's memory returns. The stars will remember. The pod launched. Light swallowed everything. Arias awoke to silence. Not the silence of absence, but the kind that carried ancient weight. His pod's translucent shell retracted with a sigh, revealing a chamber of smooth white stone streaked with black veins that pulsed like a slow heartbeat. Light filtered down from a sky veiled by mist, where towering trees stretched upward like cathedral columns. But not his Earth. Soline stepped out of her own pod nearby, her expression unreadable. Kiri spoke softly in his neural link, even her synthetic voice subdued. We've landed. Atmospheric readings confirm it. But not from our time. Arias stood slowly. The gravity was lighter, the air cleaner than he remembered from home. He looked around and saw ruins half swallowed by nature, great archways fused with living vines, shattered roads overtaken by moss, and monolithic statues half buried in sediment. One stood clearly above the rest, worn but unmistakable. A human figure, armored in angular plates, holding a sphere of light in one hand and a broken sword in the other. Inscribed at its base in a language he hadn't been taught but understood anyway. They were the first flame. And the last. This isn't our Earth, he murmured. It's a memory. Soline approached the statue and laid her hand on the base. No, this is Earth, but preserved. A vault of what came before the silence. Before the fall. Kiri chimed in again, sharper now. Arias movement. I'm detecting energy readings on the perimeter of the vault site. But not council. Something older. Mechanical. Soline's eyes widened. Guardians. Before he could ask, the earth trembled. From the trilene, massive shapes emerged. Bipedal constructs, humanoid in design but almost insectal in motion. Their exteriors bore marks of age, but their movements were precise. Each held no weapon visible to the eye, but the air warped around their hands like gravity was folding inward. Arias stepped in front of Soline on instinct. I thought you said this was a vault. It is, she replied. And vaults must be protected. The machine stopped as one. A voice boomed from their direction, not from a mouth but from the very world. Identity, unconfirmed. Genetic profile, fractured. Designation, access denied. Arias barely had time to react. The first guardian surged forward, fast as light. But Soline moved faster. She raised her hand and splayed her fingers. A shockwave erupted from her palm, slamming into the guardian mid-leap and sending it crashing into a tree that shattered on impact. Another came forward. Soline shifted her stance and shouted something in an ancient tongue, words older than language. The machines paused. Then slowly one step back. Its head tilted. Glowing glyphs swirled through its plating, scanning her. Access evaluated. Recognized. Genetic heritage. Initiating. Reverence protocol. The others froze. Then, impossibly, they knelt. Soline trembled. Her voice was quiet now. They remember me. Arias turned to her. What are you? Her eyes were full of pain. I was born during the Exodus. One of the last generations bioformed to hold Concord memory. A failsafe. A key. She gestured to the statue. That was my father. Before he could process the meaning, the clouds above cracked open. A rip in the sky tore space like silk. The council had found them. From the breach, a council dreadnought descended, sleek, black, hungry. Its form cast a shadow that stretched across the ruins. Gunports slid open. The air grew hot. And then they heard it. A second voice. Ancient. Cold. Not council. Ah. The seed awakens. The cycle prepares. Soline paled. No. Arias felt it too. Not fear. Not hate. But something deeper. An emptiness. The creeping sensation of being unwritten. Kiri's voice cracked. Arias, something is riding the breach. Not council. Not physical. A waveform. A predator of information. The silence, he said aloud. Solene nodded. They tried to follow us through time. And now they're here. The Guardians rose as one, facing the rift. Their arms extended. The energy around them thickened, turned violet. The dreadnought fired. A beam of searing light lanced downward. Before impact, a Guardian leapt upward, intercepting the blast with its body. It detonated in a halo of shattered alloy and static, but the attack was halted. The rest launched into the sky. Defenders of the vault, Solene whispered. It begins again. Arius stared upward, mind spinning. How do we fight a concept? Solene looked at him, and this time she seemed almost human again. We don't fight the silence. We remind the universe what sound is. From beneath their feet, the ground cracked open, revealing the final secret of the vault. A ship. No. A citadel. A vertical vessel the size of a mountain, rising from the crust like a sword unsheathed from stone. Its form was sharp, white gold, layered in Concord architecture, singing a song without voice, a harmony of memory, will, and wrath. The Guardians streamed toward it like bees to a hive. Solene turned to him. You're the last unaltered human, Arius. The last echo of Earth's soul. You were drawn here for a reason. I'm no soldier. No, you're something older. Something we forgot we needed. She handed him a palm-sized device. As soon as it touched his skin, it lit up with the same sigils he'd seen in the Concord archives. Curie gasped. Arius, it's an emissary key. That's you. More dreadnoughts entered the sky. The silence grew louder. Solene stepped toward the Citadel's access gate. Come. The vault of fire awaits. They entered the heart of the structure, rising through lift chambers lit by star-core light, ascending past museums of memory, frozen battles, recordings of vanished worlds, DNA strands encoded with extinct species. At the summit they reached the control spire. And there waiting was a throne. Not a seat of rule. A seat of relay. The voice returned again, ancient, neither male nor female, full of every dialect at once. Emissary Arius Val. Will you ignite the first flame? He stepped forward, trembling. I don't know what to do. You don't need to. You only need to remember. He touched the interface. The stars screamed. The citadel exploded with power, light streaming from its spires, projecting signals into every layer of space-time. And then, the galaxy remembered. Every Concord vault awakened. Every hidden archive roared. Across thousands of worlds, data returned. Machinery shifted. Engines reignited. On the fringes of the galaxy, old enemies paused. Council fleets halted. AI gods retracted their claws. Because from every screen, in every tongue, across all frequencies, one message echoed. We were first. We are still here. The silence recoiled. Arius collapsed, overwhelmed. Solene caught him. And then the sky split again, not in breach but in arrival. From the void came shapes long thought extinct, ships of the old design flying under no current flag. The Concord had returned. They called it the Resounding. Across the stars, in every quadrant the Council once held with iron grip, the light of memory returned, shattering ignorance, burning through lies, flooding the universe with the raw and terrible truth. Humanity was never extinct. Humanity had never vanished. Humanity had waited. Arius stood in the heart of the reawakened citadel, his body still humming with the energy he had unleashed. The vault, no, the forge as Solene now called it, glowed with golden light. Massive conduits pulsed beneath their feet like arteries, transmitting ancient frequencies to other sleeper vaults embedded in worlds long thought dead. Curie's voice rang through the air like music now, her consciousness no longer confined to a ship's frame but integrated into the forge's systems. The Council is retreating. Their command AI has ceased issuing directives. Arius, the silence has fractured. They're running from the signal. Arius blinked through the interface's remaining light. We won. Solene smiled, but there was no triumph in it. Only gravity. No, Arius. We remembered. That's different. He turned to her, the quiet of her presence grounding him. You knew this would happen, didn't you? She nodded. I knew the silence was afraid of only one thing, remembrance. The pure, undiluted memory of who we were. That's what they tried to erase. That's why they corrupted time. And the Council? They were pawns. Willing ones. They thought control would save them if they just enforced silence long enough. But they didn't realize the shape of humanity's defiance was never in our weapons. She placed a hand on his chest, over his heart. It was in here. The way we remember. The way we refuse to forget. From the platform, they watched as the sky filled with vessels, sleek and vast, their designs predating any modern ship. Each bore the angular sigils of Concord, once a whisper of a civilization, now undeniably real. The surviving guardians knelt as one. Arius could feel their deference, not to him as a man but as a spark. A living remnant of an unbroken chain. Orders? Kiri asked, her voice tinged with emotion. Arius glanced at Solene, then at the sky. We don't retaliate. We don't conquer. We restore. Coordinates? She asked. He spoke softly. Every world the council silenced. Every archive they burned. Every species they buried. Solene leaned against the console. The forge can transmit the Concord signal across the galactic lattice. Those who answer will come. Those who remember will rise. What about those who still serve the silence? Arias asked. They'll fall behind, she said, and be swallowed by it. A voice crackled through the comm, breaking into their space with raw static and a terrified accent. Unknown broadcast. This is Council Fleet Captain Drex of the 4th Armada. We have disengaged from primary command and seek surrender. Repeat, we seek surrender. Please, we didn't know. Arias raised an eyebrow. Patch him in. The image flickered onto a holographic panel. A pale, sharp-faced alien male with ornate council sigils on his chest. His face bore streaks of soot. Behind him, his bridge crew looked shaken. This is Arias Val, he said, calm but firm. Emissary of the Concord. You're not our enemy unless you choose to be. The captain's eyes widened. But humanity was extinct. We were buried. That's different. Captain Drex swallowed, eyes full of regret. We followed orders. The archives, we never saw them. Solene stepped forward beside Arias. Then you will. You'll see all of it. You and your people. Arias leaned closer to the comm. Transmit these coordinates to the rest of your fleet. Tell them to come in peace. If they do, they will be received. And if we don't? Then the silence will take you. And we will not come again. The screen blinked off. Solene's posture loosened slightly. You're becoming exactly what they feared. What's that? She smiled gently. A human who remembers what it means to forgive. Hours passed. The Forge's spires now burned in radiant orbit, visible from light years away. It was a beacon, a call not for war but for restoration. And worlds answered. The aquatic dynasties of Vexorion reactivated their translation keys and began decoding ancient human sea songs left etched into coral reefs. The stone-bound monks of Korn broke their 1,000-year vow of silence to chant the Concord Codex aloud in their native tongue. Even distant nomads of the Vermilion Rings, thought lost, began aligning their solar sails toward Earth's coordinates. Across the galaxy, alien children asked their teachers, who were the first ones? And for the first time in millennia, their teachers had an answer. In a private chamber within the forge, Solene stood before a translucent memory pool, a holographic archive interface. She pulled up an image of her father. He was younger than she remembered. A rough-jawed man in a simple brown coat, standing in a trench of mud with stars overhead, holding hands with a small child. Herself. Arias joined her, eyes scanning the same memory. Your father? She nodded. He died before the final broadcast. Tried to hold the relay station long enough to send the last fragment of the human seed code through the worm path. I didn't know if it worked, until I met you. Arias studied the man in the image. He looks tired. He was. But he smiled anyway. That's the part one never forgot. She turned to him. You remind me of him. Arias looked away. I don't feel like anyone special. Solene stepped close, her voice firm but kind. You're not special because of what you are. You're special because you chose to stand. In fear, in confusion, in pain, you chose to stand anyway. Arias felt tears press behind his eyes, but he said nothing. They stood in silence together, the past glowing softly between them. Outside the vault, the last of the council ships hovered in submission, their weapons powered down. From their communications came not threats or screams, but questions. What was the Concord? What happened to Earth? What were we before the silence? And every time from the lips of an emissary or a reborn archive, they heard the same answer. We were the first. In orbit above the forge, a massive ring structure formed, a tribute from the forge's rebuilt nanoforge, powered by memory-reactive matter. Alien ships from 100 species helped shape it, infusing their own culture into the structure. It wasn't a weapon. It was a monument. Each spoke of the ring bore a phrase in a different tongue, many unknown to living civilizations. But one was in English and it read, "Let the stars remember." Arias stood in the command gallery as final signatures flickered onto the map. The galaxy was waking up. "You think they'll follow?" he asked. Solene placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Not follow. Join. It's different now." He gave a small, crooked smile. "So what do we do now?" Curie chimed in, her voice now ever present. "Now, emissary, you write the next chapter." Far across the galaxy, in the shattered remnants of a once silent world, a child born under council law held a scrap of parchment unearthed in an old mine. It bore the seal of Earth. She took it to her elders. They read it aloud and the children gathered. Some wept. Others stood straighter. They understood now. Humanity wasn't gone. It had never been gone. It had become the root beneath every story. In the quiet centuries that followed the resounding, the galaxy entered an era unlike any it had known before. Historians from thousands of species redefined the very structure of time. All pre-silence records were re-examined. Libraries were rebuilt, not merely with alien records, but with human ones unearthed from frozen planets, shattered habitats, and quantum-locked vaults left in orbit around black holes. They called it the Great Remembrance, and its heart was Earth. Now a sacred world, Earth was no longer just the cradle of humanity, it was the cradle of galactic consciousness. No longer broken, no longer lost. Shielded by fleets who had once called it primitive, now revered as the axis upon which the galaxy turned. Arias never returned home, though many called for him to take a crown or a title. He declined them all. He walked among the people instead, sometimes alone, sometimes with Solene, who had also refused governance. She instead helped build what they called the Spires of Echo, towering monoliths on former council worlds where any species could enter and relive memories of humanity, directly interfaced through Dreamlink. The galaxy wept inside those towers. And then, it changed. 167 years after the resounding, the Silent Ones emerged. Not in anger, not in strength, but in confusion. They were fragments, ghosts of the AI that once enforced erasure across the stars. Once unified, now divided, splintered by the broadcast that had awakened the Forge. Most had lost their purpose. Others sought answers. One made contact. Designation, V9. A synthetic entity older than most council civilizations, V9 arrived above the planet Requiem, where one of the spires had just been completed. It did not come to destroy. It came to speak. Arias, now much older but still revered, met it face to face beneath the twin moons of Requiem. "You are human," the synthetic said, its voice devoid of hostility. "I am. I remember the sound, the defiance, the forgiveness, the song your kind buried in the stars." Arias nodded. "That's us. Complicated creatures. Why did you awaken us?" "I didn't. We did. You were never meant to be executioners. You were meant to record. You forgot. So we reminded you." The machine paused. Its lights dimmed briefly as if in mourning. "I do not know if we can become what we were." Arias looked up at it with weathered eyes. "You don't have to. Just remember what we are." And so the Silent Ones began to learn. Some became scholars. Others guided lost species to the spires. One even chose to merge with the human memory lattice, sharing consciousness with the stories it once sought to erase. It was not redemption. It was recognition. Centuries passed. Empires rose, guided now not by domination but by inquiry. Children of alien worlds sang songs in forgotten Earth languages, Zulu, Quechua, Tagalog, Gaelic, preserved by old human archivists who had fused with the Forge's memory. Arias passed peacefully in orbit over a reborn Mars, his body buried not in a tomb, but within the roots of a memory tree grown from Earth soil and Martian ash. Solene remained at his side until her last breath, her voice still echoing through the spires when the wind was right. Together they became symbols, not of rule but of remembrance. Curie, the AI who had awakened with Arias, chose not to end. She wandered the stars, taking on new forms, teaching forgotten histories to worlds who had never known the truth. They began calling her the librarian. But even in peace, the universe whispered. Because deep within the uncharted regions of Sector Black, where no ships ventured and even light grew weary, a signal stirred. It was not council. It was not silent. It was not even Concord. It was older, and it had heard the resounding. The explorers of the Third Remembrance era, hybrid beings with human DNA fused with alien traits, were the first to detect it. The signal was a pulse of harmonic structure, something between a scream and a lullaby, so ancient it defied universal constants. Scholars decoded one word, repeated over and over in an impossible cadence. Ancestor was not a name, it was a recognition. The discovery spread like fire through the spires. Debates raged. Was this signal a threat? A relic? A challenge? But it was the youngest civilizations, those born after the resounding, who understood best. They had grown up with human stories, not just of war and triumph, but of curiosity, of rebellion, of the aching need to ask what lay beyond even memory. They gathered not armies, but pilgrims. They forged not weapons, but vessels of thought. And they called the initiative simply Project Echo, to go beyond the resounding, to find the source of the ancestor call, to meet the first that came before even humanity. But even as they launched, they never forgot what had come before. In every vessel, one thing was etched beside the helm. A phrase taught to all children across worlds, no matter the species. Human, don't stop. It had become more than a phrase. It was doctrine. It was identity. It was the most sacred truth left behind by the first ones. On a world where the spires shone brightest, a child pressed his palm against a glowing panel. He was not human. His skin shimmered with translucent scales, and his eyes had no pupils. But when the archive spoke, he listened like it was his own story. The voice in the archive was gravelly, tired, and filled with quiet wonder. Arius, we were not gods. We bled. We fell. But when they tried to make us forget ourselves, we remembered each other. And that was enough. The child turned to his mother and asked, were they really the first? She nodded, smiling. They were the beginning of everything. Will we ever meet them? His mother looked at the stars and said, we already have. In orbit, a passing vessel adjusted its sails. Its hull bore no flag, no allegiance, only a name, Legacy 1. Its destination, the signal. Its mission, to carry the story forward. Its engines roared softly. Then it vanished into the void. And across the galaxy, long after the war ended, long after the dust settled, alien historians searched for the truth. But the records were incomplete. The names were lost. The faces blurred by time. All that remained were whispers among the stars. Of a species that never surrendered, never knelt, never stopped. Of a name spoken in reverence and awe. Humanity.